Hi. So, what are we talking about today? Well, we're talking about modal confusion and how that causes cycles of pain and cycles of meaninglessness, right? First of all, a little bit of a, I don't know, intro sort of thing. Next week, hopefully, I will have a nicer video set up. Maybe I talked about this in the last video, but um, so look forward to that, I guess, right? It won't be this shitty in the future. Um, but what is modal confusion, right? What is that, first of all? And then we'll get into how it creates cycles of meaninglessness. And then also, how do we break out of these cycles, right? How do we get out of this feeling and this constant feeling of trying to fulfill our pleasure and yet lacking the ability to do so? So, first of all, what are the modes, right? And I think this is obviously there's in this context, of course, right? When we talk about modal confusion, there are two modes that we're talking about. We're talking about the having mode, right? The having mode, which is like I have this thing, I have a house, right? I have money, uh, I have a job, and the being mode, right? So the having mode is the things I have. The being mode is I am. I am happy. I am learning. I am growing, right? And so, what is this confusion then? Well, it's thinking that you can fulfill your desire through the wrong sort of mode. And what I mean by that is the most common way, and the way that's most likely affecting you, if any of these are, is that we have this lack, that we are not happy, which does not mean I don't have happiness. It means I'm not happy, right? It's something that you are. It's not something you have. I don't have happiness. Happiness isn't something I can point to, right? It's not something that I could cut out of my head. You know what I mean? It's something I am. I embody it. It is me. I am happy. Um, and so when we talk about that, when we lack happiness, it's something that's in the being mode. It's something I'm not. And yet, our capitalist society, not that I'm knocking it, I think it has very many benefits, and I'm certainly a proponent of capitalism, but often what it ends up doing as a byproduct is making us feel like everything is the having mode. Everything can be solved by having things, right? And so we have a being problem. I'm not happy, and we try to solve it by having something, right? So I'm not happy. Okay. You can't solve that by going out and buying things. And so what happens to people, and let's talk about this cycle, right? This cycle is I I'm unhappy for whatever reason, right? I'm not a good enough person. That's a bad explanation. I mean, I'm not a good enough person in my relationships, and so they break down, or maybe just bad stuff's happening around me, and that's rough, right? I have bad interpersonal skills, right? Sometimes your problem is the being mode. Sometimes it is I don't have enough money, so I need to get more money. But often that's not the only problem. And once we solve this having problem, um, it does not solve the underlying being issue. And that's what happens often, right? Is we have a being issue. I mean, like it says in the Bible, right? If you are, I'm not going to quote directly as I don't have this passage memorized, but Jesus says, right, if you are, good in spirit, if you have my heart, well then this earthly things will come to you, right? But if you just have earthly things, right, this goodness in your heart isn't going to come. That's not how you can't buy goodness. You can't buy joy. You can't buy fulfilledness, right? Right, as he says, right? It's easier for the camel to pass through the eye of a needle than a rich man enter the kingdom of God, right? That's the idea he's getting at there, is that you don't become a better person by having things, but Instead, by being a better person, you get things. And so, or rather, your needs are fulfilled. And so we need to focus on that. And so what ends up happening, I rather digressed, I fear, but what happens is we end up seeing something in our life that we're lacking. So we try to fulfill that need. We're like, oh, I'm lacking money. Ah, let me go get some money. Let me go fight for some money. Then you get that money, and suddenly I'm still feeling this lack. And you're like, what's happening? I fulfilled this, having problem, right? And another, you're like, I'm sorry, I digress maybe a few times, but I want to be clear about this, right? Why do we have these having issues? It's because I need to have food. I need to have water. I need to have shelter, right? So there are things we do need to have. I am not, I am not shelter. I'm not food. I am, satiated. But that's something that is, that we need to have food to be satiated, right? And so we do have this natural desire to have things. Yet the world we live in is one where we don't need that having mode as much as we used to. It used to be like, well, you're dying, you got to get some food, right? You need to be after that food. You need to be after that shelter because you're constantly in a state of almost going away, right? Almost going extinct, almost dying, and almost having your family, the people you love that you care about die, right? But the world we live in is not very dangerous at all. In fact, it's almost too safe. That's not true. It's not too safe, but so we still have this carnal desire to have things, yet we don't have the world in which that is needed. And so we think we can solve our being problems by having things, and you can't. And so what ends up happening is we get things, right? We get the money that we thought we were lacking, and maybe we were lacking money. We get the money, and we find another problem. We get that thing. We're like, oh, I'm finally happy. Nope, not happy. Oh, all right, I'm going to get another thing. Still not happy. Really? It must be, though, that I'm missing this other thing that I didn't realize I was missing before. But now I realize I'm missing this. Boom, let me get this thing. Ah, still not happy. Right? And at a point you're going to realize, I don't think there's anything I can get that's going to make me happy. And because there's not. There's not anything you're going to get that's going to make you happy. You have to focus on who I am. Who am I? What am I being? Right? And you say, well, Kai, how do you do that? How do you focus on the being mode, right? How do I become better? How do I become happy? Right? We have to dissect our lives. We have to ask ourselves, truly, how am I acting? Remove yourself from your existence and look at your life. Say, what are these actions I'm taking? Right? Free yourself from your own biases. And not only that, try to then go into the world. Don't just pull back, look from a bird's eye view, but also try to go into the world and say, what though, in this situation, what am I supposed to do? Not what is the most profitable, not what gets me the most things, but what is the right action, right? I've talked about this once before, right? About the logos. What is the logos? What is the path forward? What does that golden mean? What is that? What is that? In this situation and in all situations, try to create a better understanding of what the best life I can be living is. Not just having more things. Having more things isn't going to make you happy. In fact, it's not even going to get you the most things for most of us, right? But being happy, being better, suddenly you realize, like Socrates, right, who would famously go into these great markets and say, look at all the things I don't need. Because when we are happy, when we are fulfilled, when we are better, when we are living life as we should, as we want to, suddenly we don't need to have things. Once we have our basic needs met, we don't need those. We don't need money beyond giving me shelter and providing shelter and food and water and safety for those people I care about and myself. Beyond that, though, I don't need more. Right? Maybe I want to have more. Maybe I try to get some more so I can, protect my family more and create a little bit of a better life. But I don't need those things because I am happy, because I am, living a good life. So again, how do we live the best life? How do we, focus on the being mode? Well, we try to do two things: remove ourselves, look at our lives without the lenses we see the world through all the time. We have, Aquinas says, we're born into this double darkness of an obscurity, a sin and ignorance. Right? We have these shades of ignorance and sin. We don't see the truth, and we're also living wrong. Right? What I mean by that is we think good things are wrong, or the good things are wrong, right? Or wrong things are right, which is the sin, but also ignorance of a larger truth. We don't know everything. We don't know all the facts. We don't know all the information. No, we don't. So we have to remedy both of these things. We have to try to understand, go into the world, try to understand the mean, try to understand, the world itself. That's eliminating the ignorance part. Eliminating the ignorance part is through illuminating the golden mean, illuminating the logos, the word. And then the sin part, how do we eliminate sin? We look back, we remove ourselves, and we look at our life through as an objective a perspective as we can. So that's what we have to try to do. That's what Christians try to do through prayer. And it's what we all must do if we want to live a better life, if we want to fulfill the being mode and not live in the having mode, because the reality is that does nothing for you. It does nothing to make your life better. Often, though, we think, I'll get the stuff and then I'll think about being happy. It's not how it's going to work. It's not how it's going to work. It's not how it does work. We must be good. We must be happy. And then the world shall come to us. All that we need will come to us. Thank you all very much. I hope this was interesting for you, and certainly interesting for me to talk about. I hope it was helpful, and if you have any comments, I would love to hear whatever you have to say. Thank you so much, and thank you for bearing with this subpar, let's say, video, audio, and video. So, thank you so much.